Alright, y'all, welcome back to our videos. So this particular video is about Unit 7 again. This is Criminal Law Part 2. So in the previous video, we discussed types of law. So common law, international, statutory, administrative, that sort of thing. And now we're going to move on to types of crime. So we're going to get a little more specific before we talk about the criminal law process. So before we can discuss how someone moves through the court system, first we got to know about the actual types of crime. So the first one is crimes against people. This is pretty self-explanatory. It is what it is. You are causing physical harm to a person's body, a person's actual physical being, okay? That's a crime against a person. So that would be assault, murder one, rape, aggravated assault, assault with a deadly weapon, assault with a vehicle, yada yada. Okay, so that's a crime against people. So if you cause physical harm to someone, all right. Murder 1, 2, and 3, manslaughter, and we'll get into those when we talk about criminal law process. But crimes against people is causing physical harm to someone's actual body. All right, the next one is victimless crime. It is what it sounds like, people. Okay, so there's literally no victim, but the law has still been broken. So there is a law about not harming yourself as well. The only victim here in victimless crime is you, whoever is perpetrating this thing. So drug use, typically it hurts people emotionally and mentally to see their loved ones abusing any type of illicit drug. But essentially, the only person you are physically hurting is yourself. Now, if that drug use turns into violence or anger towards another person, that's another thing. And then not only are you committing a victimless crime with drug use, but you are also then committing a crime against a person. But typically speaking, drug use is victimless, which is why people are like, why don't we just legalize weed? It's not hurting anybody but yourself, okay? So that's an argument that I hear all the time, especially from students. Gambling is technically a victimless crime because the only person you're hurting is your own wallet, okay? It's literally just you. Prostitution is your body, girl. Do what you want. The only state in the union that will allow prostitution and it is not illegal is Nevada because they wild out there, okay? So that is the only state where they will not, they do not have any laws against sex work, and you can basically do whatever you want within reason, I guess. All right, and then public intoxication could be another example of victimless crime. If you out drunk and disorderly and like yelling in the street, the only person you're disrupting is yourself. You're only hurting yourself and your own body. You might be annoying other people, but you're not physically hurting them. So good old Nevada. And a casino. So another question is whether or not casinos are allowed to be a thing. Can you gamble? Well, it depends on where you are. In Nevada, gambling out here is totally fine, which is why people are like, let's go to Vegas and throw some money around. And they always lose money. It's always a losing game. But Native American reservations are technically not federal property. They are their own thing. It's like being inside of your own little country within the borders of the United States. You don't need a passport to go into a Native American reservation. However, they do have different rules. So they are allowed to have casinos, which is why there is a Harrah's Casino out in Cherokee, North Carolina, on the Cherokee Native American reservation. Next up is white-collar crime. So this is centered around money. White-collar refers to people who have high-paying, affluent jobs like doctors, attorneys, people who sell stocks back and forth, and we'll get into the stock market in a little more detail in the coming units, but people who sell like pieces of corporations, or like people who sell parts of Amazon for profit, or they'll take your money and invest it for you so you can have a retirement account one day. This is money crimes, okay? So like embezzlement is just a long word that means that you're skimming money off the top of someone's stuff. So let's say, for example, we're talking about like a good example would be The Wolf of Wall Street. So if y'all seen that movie, it's a little raunchy, it's a little wild, okay? It's a lot wild, but it's fun. That individual would lie to people and say like, oh, if you give me $500,000, I'll take 10% of it, so $5,000, and I will then, oh gosh, is that right? No, it's not. 50,000. Good grief, I'm losing my touch. Okay, so he would take 50,000 for himself as his fee for investing your money, and the other 450,000 he would take and invest in the stock market. Now he decided he wasn't going to do that. He was going to take like half of your money for himself and then invest the other half. So that would be embezzlement, when you're skimming money off the top. There was a cafeteria worker who was arrested in Pitt County in, I think, 2015 for skimming like $25,000 out of the cafeteria where she worked over the course of like 7 years. So while it might seem kind of wild, embezzlement can come in all shapes and sizes of cash. All right, identity theft is also a white-collar crime, so someone acting like they're somebody else, even to the point where you get plastic surgery to look like somebody else. You've changed, like, your appearance and kind of like how you live. Investment fraud is another one. So, like, you say you're going to invest, you say you're going to, like, take money to invest in this company, but the company doesn't really exist, so you're just stealing money from people and lying to them. That's white-collar crime. So, again, the Wolf of Wall Street. This guy is the most notorious person in white-collar crime in all of American history. This is Bernie Madoff. He made off, no pun intended, with like $5 billion of people's money. He put almost 100,000 people out of a job as a result when he was eventually caught by the FBI. He is serving a sentence, a federal prison sentence, for the rest of his life in a North Carolina prison. Fun fact. All right, a property crime, or a crime against property, literally, y'all, destroy someone's, what do you say? Property. Okay, so it hurts someone else's land or belongings, not their physical being, their stuff. Okay, so it destroys or like diminishes someone's stuff. So arson, vandalism, graffiti, robbery counts as a crime against property, because if you are physically not hurt from it and they just take your money, they took your belongings, and that's a crime against your property, because your money is your property. Okay, so that type of thing. This particular photo is a picture of Tiger Woods, the professional golfer's car, after his wife took a driver, so a giant golf club, to it, and then he ran it into a tree. Fun facts. All right, and then graffiti. Don't tag stuff. It's annoying. All right, so the next one is organized crime. It involves a whole bunch of people. It's got a structure. So an example of this would be like drug trafficking, so like narcos type deal, human trafficking, or gangs. There is a hierarchy. So there is somebody who's the boss. There's somebody who's the kind of the boss. There's somebody who's like JV boss, and then there's somebody who's like freshman team boss. Okay, then there's like little soldiers who are out here doing like random stuff in the street. Organized crime has levels. Organized crime involves multiple sets of people, typically across state lines or county lines, which is why a lot of law enforcement has to get involved in order to take down any type of organized crime syndicate. All right, the last one is war crimes or crimes against humanity. We've talked about international crime, or international law, I should say, and war crimes just a little bit in the previous video, and now we'll kind of expand on that just a tad. It's any crime that violates basic human rights. So this typically happens against dictators or corrupt world leaders. So like Hitler, or this homie who used to run Bosnia and Herzegovina. He was a horrid human being and committed genocide against his own people. Saddam Hussein, this guy on the right-hand side, committed genocide against the people of Iraq in the 1980s and 90s. He would literally take chemical weapons and wipe out whole villages of people in order to clear the village of humans and mine for oil underneath. So same sort of general I have the power type person. It just depends on it's just different places and different looks on their face, and apparently different facial hair. Okay, so war crimes or crimes against humanity, it's typically very hard to prosecute these, especially when we get into things like genocide, because that happens in the United Nations, but the United Nations is not allowed to punish for crimes. They're not allowed to enforce except for their legal team, and so putting someone in jail for crimes against humanity is an extremely difficult thing to prove in court. All right, and that has been part 2 of Intro to Criminal Law.